Good morning. So, if you recall, I hope you do recall, one of the problems that we have unresolved is an apparent contradiction in Rabbi Kiva Eiger. Mm-hmm. Yes? So, just to refresh our memories, we have Rabbi Kiva Eiger over here in Even Ezer, Lamed Daled, quoting seemingly, approvingly, the Noida B'Yehuda, that in Kiddushay Cheresh V'Chareshes es gibt kein bracha. Yeah, there is no bracha. And the problem that we had was that we found Rabbi Kiva Eiger in Yerodea, Siman Aleph in Shchita. It's on page 7 in your notes. Where there the Mechaber Paskins, a Cheresh, who is even his Medaber Be'en Shemeh is Lo Yishchet, if you remember, because he can't hear the brachas. And the Taz over there explained it, and Rabbi Kiva Eiger said, and I quote, here you do have it, it's on top of page 8. Yeah, it's source 15. Mm-hmm. So Rabbi Kiva Eiger there in Yerodea said as follows, on the Taz, quoting, commenting on the Taz. Taz, who says that the bracha is a bracha of shchita is akin to a brichas hashevach, and all Klal Yisrael shaykh to it. In Bonu Damaisa the brichas erusin, says Rabbi Kiva Eiger, in kein gam b'medam avenu shemea, yishle mechatchila da bracha eino muteles davka olav. Ukemoi b'brichas erusin v'hachoson eino shoymea d'mikol mokoim arav mevorech. Chad v'chalak. Yeah. Seems to be very unambiguous, very straightforward. Very straightforward. He's actually saying the words. And Baruch Hashem, Motzosi Yisrael Nafshi, Midei Chapsi B'Svarim. I was looking around in the different, as you know, I'm a Google Adoyer. Yeah, you all know that. So looking around Baruch Hashem for the Yitzhak Chochmah and looking around the different achronim. So there is a Medayan, a Pesach in Bnei Brak, of English extraction, of Yom Tov Zanga, you may have heard of him, and he has a set of interesting svarim. And one of them here, he has a kuntras on Nisuin, and here in source 17, we'll come back to source 16 a bit later. In source 17, he says as follows. He asks the stira. To be fair, he's not the only one. I saw it in a number of achronim that cite this apparent inconsistency, apparent stira in Widerspruch, Widerspruch, yeah. Mm-hmm. In this apparent stira in Rabbi Kiva Eiger. And he says he asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and he got a beautiful answer from Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Let's learn it. 17. K'tzas kosher, Rabbi Kiva Eiger soiser es atzmei memash tziyin be'even ezer sim lamed daled divrei anoid b'Yehuda sheposik de'einu varach b'cheresh v'chareshes ve'hizbeli moron agrach Kanievsky. Now we have to say, unfortunately, we have to say Zatzal. De la halacha poisik Rabbi Kiva Eiger k'shitas hataz. La halacha Rabbi Kiva Eiger agrees with the Taz. She birchas erusin hi birchas hashevach. Umimela afilu machosa neino shoymea b'chol zois mevorchin birchas erusin. Uma shetziyin Rabbi Kiva Eiger behilchas kiddushin ledivrei hanoida b'Yehuda hu rek maremokim. Rabbi Kiva Eiger, it's a sort of answer where you kind of afterwards you say to yourself, how come I didn't think of it? It seems to be self-evident once you see it. Have a look. Now have a look in Rabbi Kiva Eiger here by us. The Loshen, exact Loshen is Cheresh she'einu shemea she'neisa cheresh she'einu shemas ein levorach klal shuvas noida b'Yehuda. Reb Chaim understood that all he's doing is it's his way of saying ayin b'shuvas noida b'Yehuda. Yeah. He's saving you the work of looking up the Noida B'Yehuda. The Noida B'Yehuda says cheresh cheresh ein levorach klal. But you really want to know what Rabbi Kiva Eiger holds? Here, when he comments on the Taz, over here, he paskins. Because the Taz, he doesn't like the Taz's zushtel, as we say, the comparison. He says, if you're going to compare it to anything, You're going to compare it to Erusin in Banu, the Damoisin Erusin. So then the halacha should be different by Shechita. Ukamoi bebirchas, and here he says unequivocally, very clearly, Ukamoi bebirchas Erusin v'hachosin Erushimea dumikol makom rav mevarech. There he's telling us the accepted practice. This is his view. Das Rabbi Kiva Eiger is that there is birchas Erusin with if the chosin is only shemea. Now, interestingly, he doesn't mention the kala. So is the kala a pikachas? Because this was a bit of a suffix in the, if you recall, this was a bit of a suffix in the Rabbi Yehuda. You with me, guys? Mm-hmm. Well, let's assume he's not mechalek. Yeah, he's not mechalek. He's not mechalek. And therefore, says Reb Chaim Kanievsky, that this is Das Rabbi Kiva Eiger. Das Rabbi Kiva Eiger is that Birchas Erusin is a Birchas HaShevach, and therefore there would be a bracha. Quite fascinating. In Yeridea, in Bayas, in Even Ezer, he's Maramokim. It's his way of saying, I am B'Tshuvas Nei Rabbi Yehuda. Let's just finish this off. Umashatzin Rabbi Kiva Eiger Birchas Kiddushin. L'divrei Rabbi Yehuda hu rak maramokim be'inin hashayla shel kiddush cheres mechareshes. Finish. Va'advorim, and then he adds, Rabbi Yom Tov Zanga adds, Va'advorim yesum mefurashim b'tuas shoyer. Shom in Yeridea, so now it's Klop Nun Tes. V'zel shoyne. We're doing source 17. Yeah. Tmieli, the tuas shoyer asks, Otu ba'inu b'birchas erusin shaharav yechavein lo'hitzi as achoson va'achoson yechavein. Lot says. Very interesting. Says the Tuas Shoyer, is it indeed the case that in Birchas Erusin the Rav has to be mechavan to be moitzi the chosin, and the chosin has to be karkavon to be yotzer? V'lo nisakna mei kara davka la chosin, k'may Birchas Hashchita shenitzakna la shrechet v'amavorich tzorech lechaven loitzia rak. Says the Tuas Shoyer, none of this. Nisakna al hanoyadim lebeis o Erusin, and he ayin shom rayes, he brings various rayas. So it's worthwhile noting a significant pasuk, the Tuas Shoyer, who takes the view that this idea of being motzi the chosin there to Birchas HaShevach, it's basically on anybody who's there, and if he doesn't hear, so really not so simple. So you have Rabbi Kiva Eiger, you have now Das Rabbi Kiva Eiger. So we have machlekes Nei Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Kiva Eiger. So the gloves are off. This is serious business. Yeah, no, not so poshut anymore. Let's shift our focus slightly. Within Me'inyan Le'inyan, let's shift our focus slightly to the reason I'm sure you noticed yesterday under the chuppah, and probably indeed with your own chuppahs, that I assume, and you know what, well, I shouldn't make any assumptions. You recall your chuppah? I hope so, that's good. How long ago was it?
5 years.
5 years. That's it. Yeah. Okay. May I ask where was your Chupa Kiddushin?
Yerushalayim HaKodesh.
Yerushalayim HaKodesh. Who was the Masada, if I may ask?
Masada Kiddushin was Rav Meir Schweiger.
Okay. Sounds like
Benjamin Yudi.
Okay. I don't know either of them. I'm sure they're very good Jews. Do you recall whether who drank the wine?
Who drank the wine?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Who drank the wine?
Chosin and Kala.
Chosin and Kala, not the Rav. No, and that is standard practice, generally speaking. We will elaborate on this. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yes. I had the honor. Yeah. So, and we asked the question yesterday. Remember the Pnei Yeshua. Remember we saw yesterday in the Pischei Tshuva, the Pnei Yeshua, who asks, where do we find what is fundamentally a Birchas HaNehnin? Because, remember, we're learning Sif Beis here. We're learning here, Lamadalad, Even Ezer, Lamadalad, Sif Beis, was steht in Mechaba, no hagula has the Brocha zu al koitz. It's a minhag. Birchas Nisuin, a.k.a. Birchas Chasanim, it's a different ballgame. There's a chiyuv, Chazal were Masakin, and that we'll see in some Samach Beis. By Birchas Erusin, we saw yesterday, it's a minhag, no hagu. Lashon Rambam, there's a minhag. It's a minhag. So therefore, assuming, which many of the poskim do, that it has the status of a Birchas HaNehnin, Loi motzinu asks the Pnei Yeshua, we saw yesterday in the Pesach Chupa, that the Gemara, on the basis of the Gemara, say Paragimel to Rosh Hashanah, that a Birchas Hanenin, you never have a situation where we say Yotza Moitzi unless the Mavarech also is Toyim and has some of the Hana. Exception being Kiddush, right? And there is another one, but that's an exception. But generally speaking, that utilizing the concept of Aravus and being, even though you're Yotza, you can be Moitzi somebody else, with a Birchas Hanenin, you have to do some of the drinking, okay? And here we have a situation. The bracha under the chuppah, the very pragofen is, apparently it's only a Birchas Hanenin. There's a minhag to have a kais, fine. It's not a part of the mitzvah of the bracha, it's a minhag. So it's a Birchas Hanenin. And if the Rob doesn't drink, how can they drink? It's a bracha of Atala. And they say, Omein, it's a hefser. I mean, what's going on? This was the question of the Pnei Yeshua. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, we're going to start delving into this a little bit. Why indeed? So, why indeed has the minhag arisen, which would appear to be on the face of it, very simply, it sounds wrong. It sounds like it's ending up with a bracha of Atala. Surely, that's not a good idea. So how can the minhag develop? Why is it indeed that the minhag would develop that the Rav would not drink? Why should that be? Look at this. So, we have some reasons. Source 18. What did you want to say? You sound like you've got something to get off your chest.
It sounded like we should speculate, but I don't. Then it sounded we should speculate.
Go for it.
Is the chiyuv incumbent upon the challah? I mean, the Rav makes the bracha on behalf of the chassan and the kala because of shundas. Okay. In that case, they would have to drink it. You could say it's also with kiddush. So I thought for one moment, is there any question of pagum that could arise?
I'd like to say that you're close. Let's see. The question is a fundamental one. It's a birchas hanenin. The question is actually a very simple one. It's very straightforward. It would appear to be the Beir Pri Hagofen would appear to be nothing more than a common garden variety Beir Pri Hagofen. In which case you can't apply the concept of aravos unless the mavarech makes a bracha. It doesn't seem to be a simple way out of it. Now listen to this. Source 18. Roisi b'shem Agon Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. That's our tam. A reason. Loma no hagushala yishta hamavarach me'akles shel bracha. They say over in the name of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, the Rav of Yerushalayim. What is the reason? Why would the minhag have developed that the mavarach should not make a bracha from the case? Dihine. Isa b'shulchan aruch Chaim Simkufayin Sif Tezayin Lo yishta me'akles yitan lechavei roi mipnei sarkonas nefoshois. Don't drink from a cup and give it to somebody else because of sakonas nefoshes. Hevi amishna brura tam. Shema machmas habusha yikabel chaver mimenu v'yishta bal korchai. It could be if you pressurize somebody to drink from a cup you have drunk from and they don't want to, and out of shame they feel compelled to do so. V'ulai chaver moisay lishtois mimasha messiah zeh eshadis arev roikoi sham, maybe a bit of his saliva went into it. You might become ill. In other words, doesn't mean Magen Avram kosav shelo yom shemo yomus. Okay, Magen Avram says maybe yomus. Velochein. Either way, whether there is a real sakana of death here or not, says Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld on the basis of that Shulchan Aruch velochein. Heyois sheneistin lechasan v'kala tachas achupa efsha ubusha gedola lehem lesarev lishtois. It would be a big busha for them to, let's say, the chasan and kala, perhaps quite rightly, are not fond of drinking, leftovers from some rabbi, or anybody for that matter. But what they're meant to say, everybody, all eyes on them, and they give the mother or the father is giving them to drink, they don't want to, it's a busha. And therefore, that's why says Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, that's why the minhag developed. Now, it's a fascinating insight. It doesn't really answer the question. Okay, we've explained why we don't. We still haven't explained why it's not a bracha matala. We've still got some work to do. Yeah? I'm reminded of the story, I don't know if it's true or not, doesn't really matter, it's funny anyhow, of the Yekka who went to the Tish for the first time, and for some reason he found himself right on the front table, and various foods were passed to him via the agency of various, hands or whatever it is. And then the Rebbe gave him a kegel from his own heilige hand. And I said, "Na danke schön, ich bin schon satt." Thank you, I've eaten already. You can't really say no. Yeah, you can't really say no. So this is it's fascinating insight from Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. But we're not done. Shuv Motzosen. Shehagonim Shlomo Zalman Auerbach Zatzal. B'minchas Shlomo Simen Yudches Dalet Kosak Ktsas Yishuv L'Minhag Ha'olam. Shlomo Zalman Zatzal also wants to try and find somewhat of a defense of the Minhag Ha'olam she'ein ha'masada kiddushin she'esim hayayin v'rak ha'chosim ba'kala toimim v'zeh l'shleim. Gam ro'isi b'shut moznayim le'mishpat lahagon Reb Zalman Sorotzkin Zal Slutzkerov. Says Reb Shlomo Zalman, I saw in the name of in the sefer of Reb Zalman Sorotzkin. Why is it indeed that the Mavorach doesn't drink from the wine? Generally speaking, a chuppah is done in the street. It's done in a public place. Says Rizal Sorotzkin, you know that it is not appropriate for a Ben Torah, certainly for a Talmud Chacham, to eat in Bashuk. Yeah, Chazal say ha'oichel bashuk doimer lekelev. You eat, you should sit down. You should be eat out in the street. So that's what he says. Says Reb Shlomo Zalman u'lefia niazdaiti hu tomua. He says you can't accept that. You can't say that it's as if he's drinking in the street. Why? Because then it follows therefore that the kiddushin took place in the shuk. Und the Gemara sagt, Rav Mangid among the Mekadosh B'Shukah. Rav was not happy at all. Somebody who is Mekadosh in the shuk. So you can't have it both ways. So obviously it's not considered a shuk because we do the Kiddushin there. So it also wouldn't suffer the problem of being Eichel. So he doesn't like that reason. So what is the reason? Ela tamhu mipnei kvoid hachosam shedoimer lemelech. Yeah, it's because of the covenant of the chosim is like a melech. And therefore it doesn't make sense that the mavorich should drink first. It's rude. The king drinks first. And then what the Rav should drink afterwards, that's also not nice. That's why we don't drink. Interesting, he paskins. If for some reason Chosson and Kala are not going to drink, whatever the reason is, I don't know, vegan or something, whatever. So I don't know. So then Tzorich Litoim, Tzorich HaMavorich Litoim Makos. Then the Mavorich, you need to know. If you ever come in a situation for some reason the Chosson and Kala are not going to drink, then of course you have to drink.
One of the drinks?
What? Yeah, probably enough. Yeah. Okay. And now we come to one of the Gedolei HaPoiskim of the not the last generation, the one before that. If you haven't come across him before, come across the Maharsham. Familiar with the Maharsham at all? You are?
So what was that? Shlomo? Is it like the Yamashon?
No. You have to be very careful with your Maharshah, Maharshal, Maharashdam, there's lots of don't confuse them.
What's his name?
So his name was, I know his surname, Brezan. His if it's not his grandson or his great grandson, was Reb Shalom Shvadron. The famous Maggid Reb Shalom Shvadron, who I'm sure you have heard of. What is perhaps less well known about him, I think sometimes I did have the zchus of hearing him quite a number of times. He was still alive when I was in yeshiva. We used to go and hear him Friday night in Zichron Moshe. It was something very special. He also came to Gateshead a number of times and heard him. And whilst I know Pesach Kron has immortalized him through his books and wonderful stories, but first of all, you should know he was a Talmud Muvak of Reb Eli Lopin Zatzal, and he was not just a tzaddik, not just because he had an incredible koyach and ability to as a maggid. He was a real maggid, but that should not chas v'shalom Shouldn't make the mistake of thinking he was somebody who could just, was a good speaker. Lahavdil elef havdalas. He was a Talmud Chacham Nifla. He was a goyin. He was a tzaddik. Like I say, Talmud Muvik of Rabbi Lopian. And one of the things that he did was he personally edited and put out the Marsham, his Zayda, Elta Zayda. The Marsham was considered to be one of the Gedolei HaPoskim, really one of the Gedolei HaPoskim in his lifetime. The same time as the Munker Charov, who he would often argue with Darkei Chupa. Yeridea, you'll see that the Marsham, broadly speaking, is considered to be more makel than some of the other poskim. The Marsham learned Maseches Shabbos and Maseches Eruvin every single Shabbos. We're talking about Goyin Otzum. His Chuvas, I think it's 10 Chalokim if I'm not mistaken. We have them downstairs in the base of Medrash. And his Goyinas, but he also wrote Ha'oras glosses on Rechaim and on Yeridea called Das Torah. And Sham Shvadron edited them and worked through them and he was the one who brought them out and published them. So just a little bit of insight. The Marsham Migdolei HaPoskim. And we're going to learn an edited version. It was a much longer tshuva, but I've extracted some of what he says on this very topic. Okay, let's have a look. Source 18. Shut Marsham Chelek Kesim and Ches. Hinei. And you also see from him his approach to Minhag Yisrael, etc. Hinei nishalti bedavar shenagu bebirchas erusin and nisuin levarech al koisos v'noisdin lahachosan litain. This is the minhag, right? We make a bracha. We have the birchas erusin and birchas nisuin on two koisos. We give it to the chosan to taste. V'rav echad pikpeik bedavar. There was some Rav, he doesn't mention him for reasons that will become apparent to protect the guilty. And there was a Rav who was mefakfik on this minhag. Chada, firstly, on the basis of the Pnei Yeshua that we learnt already. So I'll run through it. Chada do Pnei Yeshua b'kuntrus achem l'ksubas pikpik b'kosh shel erusin she'enoi chayva. It's not a chayva, it's a minhag. Umei hora'oi she'yeh dinoi k'birchas hanenin ba'alma. It should be birchas hanenin she'en echad moitzi chaveiroi. And therefore, the Rav doesn't drink, it's a problem. V'oid, and then is point number 2, which we have not seen yet. This Rav said, I have another problem. How much does the chosan drink under the chuppah? Chosan has a taste. Yeah, chosan has a taste. V'oid, al kolponim meharoi she'yishtah chosan meloi lugmav k'shir kais. V'lochein hinig lishtois ba'atzmei k'shir kais. Therefore, this Rav decided on the basis of these two objections. Number 1, the ha'ora of the Pnei Yeshua, that if the person in the Birchas Hanenin, the Mavarich has to drink. And number 2, that should be Malay Lugmav, so the Rav under the Chuppah knocks it back. And he makes sure he has a proper Malay Lugmav. V'heishavti zog the Heilige Marsham, Deloi yofa osa l'shamis minhag Yisrael. You do not mess with the Minhag Yisrael. Even if you don't understand it, even if there are some real and apparently valid halachic objections raised by serious poskim, but you do not go off on your own and just change Minhag Yisrael. Let me share something with you actually as we're doing this. I have to be careful I'm doing it because it goes onto the worldwide thingy.
What was it?
Sorry? No, editing. I'm not. I put it this way. On occasion, I have been asked to do slightly different things under the chuppah. I don't want to elaborate too much. And you may at some point potentially come across where I'll give you one example because it's because it's blatant, and I think I won't get into trouble for this. And that is, some men wear a wedding band, wear a wedding ring. And I was once asked that whether, just before they break the glass, by the end of the chuppah, whether the Kala could give him the wedding band. And I said, lo mitan alaf. What you do after you leave the chuppah, okay, that's your business. But to bring into the chuppah anything which is or will be perceived as a deviation from Minhag Yisrael. And today I'm just want to make you aware it becomes more of an issue as feminism and a non-acceptance of the tradition, or a sense that somehow it is deficient and needs to be aligned with progressive values, and you may at some point come under a certain amount of pressure, as always be shoyel eitzah from those older and wiser and better and more experienced. It's often not even the saying of the no, it's to know how to say no, it's to know, etc., etc. And sometimes maybe there are things that you can't. So whether it's from, I mean, I can take some extreme examples, it doesn't matter, whether it's, but the broad principle, this is something that comes clearly across from all of our Gedolim, is you mess and you tamper with Minhagei Yisrael at your peril. And even when there does appear to be valid, I'm not talking about women reading Ksuba under the Chupa, you know, a monkey can read Ksuba under the Chupa. You can you can dance a jig under the Chupa. It's just a hefsek between the two, between the two cases. That's not the point. The point is understanding where this is coming from. And it's not just slippery slope. It's not even slippery slope. It's the tzura of what is Minhag Yisrael. What is it? There is a reason. We mess with these things at our peril, even if it's only a minhag. And this will come across from the Marshan. Yes?
One of the one that was here for the summer semester, he brought an example, and he said, I'm not sure if he said you could do or if he does it, but he said that after breaking the glass, they added in like an extra, and it did under the chuppah, they did like she gave him a ring. So it was after the ceremony ended.
Okay.
But it was still like in the setting of the chuppah.
Okay. So I'm not sure how you want me to respond.
Asking what you think about.
What do I think? So I think, first of all, I think that probably shouldn't comment, but I don't think I personally would ever agree to that. Because do it afterwards, do it in the party, do it in you want to make a public declaration and give him a ring or whatever, whatever. The minute it is under the chuppah, you've got to think smart also. Number one, you have to think smart. And it's not even, and I'm not even when whether this is coming from a negative or malicious, even if it's coming from a genuinely remember the kala. Look at it from a kala's perspective, just for a second, right? What does the kala do under the chuppah besides for walk around, which for some reason feminists don't like either? But okay, neither here nor there.
On some say though Shechianu, in some places together.
Not as far as I'm aware. Not as far as I'm aware.
I heard.
I've never heard or seen it. I've never seen it. I've seen Sfaradi, I've seen Taimani, I've seen lots of different. My sons-in-law got married with this talisman under the talisman. Maybe that's what you mean.
No, but because
that's what you mean. So for the talis, and then I have a son-in-law, Sfaradi son-in-law, who did. But okay, maybe they also do. That's right. So he put on a new talis, yes, but then he put the talis, and he said Shechem, not her. It's his talis, and he puts it on then over the kala as well, and that's another shitta in chuppah, knisa l'rishus. But it's not her.
That's what I did, but you don't say Shechianu because it's the first time they talis, because that's Yekos where you already had talis since your bar mitzvah. So Shechianu on a new one.
It's a new talis. You get a new talis as well. Yeah. But anyway, it's not her saying the Shechianu. Right. It's not her saying the Shechianu. Al kolponim, I would. Look again. Go back to the kala's perspective. Well, she is just passive. All she has to do is stick a finger out. That's all she has to do. And we will learn. The walking, it's a minhag. Some like it, some don't. You don't have to. I've done chuppahs where women don't walk around and they. That was a bit sneaky. Yeah, you pick the Yekasha ones you like, and
my wife wanted to do it.
I know, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's absolutely fine. There is Alpi Kabbalah, it's a whole the cave of Sefer Gever, whatever. It's not possible. But anyhow, what was I saying? I've lost my train of thought.
What
was I saying just before? About So the Kala, looking from her perspective, she does absolutely nothing. She's like, now the emes says you should know, pi halacha, I wasn't going to say this, but there's a famous ran in the Dorim, there's a shaila, and this actually, it might be negea as we go through the sugi a little bit further, might actually have a relevance in halacha, legabe her ability saying amen on the birchas erusin, and about whether that would constitute a hefsek. To what extent, halachically, does she actually play a conscious part, as it were? To what extent do we need her consciousness? Now, obviously, we don't marry people against their will. Of course, she has to be. She bought a white dress and showed up under this thing. What do we think she's doing? Of course, she's agreeing to get married. That's not the point. The point is, to what extent is she in any way halachically considered to be part of this kinyan? The Ran holds that she has to be mafkeres atzma. The Lashon Ran. Now, I'm not saying necessarily all of the Rishonim Achronim agree with that, but I do have a lot of sympathy.
What does that exactly mean? Like?
That this is what she does. All she has to do, you look at the Lashon Ran, I think it's Taf Chof in the Dorim. I'll show it to you afterwards. That she's mafkeres atzma. Avnei Miluim quotes it, and it's a well-known idea from the Ran, and she just needs to vacate her. What would be the best way of putting it? Allowing the husband to be koine her for issues, and she halachically, other than agreeing, she plays no part in it at all. And that is the halachic reality, at least according to the Ran, who's one of the Gedolei Rishonim. Now, it could be there are other Rishonim who holds that, and we're going to see this. So Lashon Ran, I'll show it to you later. That's by the way. So I'm happy, have sympathy is one thing, but I personally would not under the chuppah. Think about what you also you have to think smart. You have to think smart. Everybody who's around those standing there, unless the Rav is under incredible pressure, if it would be a question of his job or something like that, I don't know. Have to ask an important shaila. And of course, I don't know if you noticed, the chuppah I did yesterday is not. It was a different tone. I set the tone which I felt was appropriate for the occasion and the people. Of course, you have to be flexible. You have to make it a bit lighter, and some jokes, and that's. You've got to use your seichel. You've got to know who your clients are, and you've got to do it in a way that is both engaging and meaningful for them, whilst touching the proper halachic bases and making sure it's inspirational and uplifting for the chassan and kala as well, and they have kavanah to do the mitzvah, etc., etc. And it's a balancing act. However, you should know, the reality is that many aspects of classic Orthodox Judaism are under siege from different areas. So we need to be conscious of that. And the bottom line is, I would certainly suggest, as young rabbanim, certainly, you don't make your own decisions, that's for sure. And you have to speak to somebody who, not just is a big posek, but there are relatively few people that I, if I'm honest, really trust. It's not a question of, not often, when it's not a question of black and white, unless you go to a Godol B'Yisrael who transcends that whole thing, and that's another whole shmuz in Hashkafa. A true Godol B'Yisrael is it doesn't even necessarily operate via his seichel per se. That's another, not for now, it's a going, that's another whole shmuz. But if you're asking a dayan, a posek, then you make sure that it is someone who is totally, who not just knows the Torah as a Baal Seichel, but also is au fait with the reality on the ground where you are. Very, very important. I don't know how we got caught into this. Yes, go on.
Ask, how would you convey that decision to the... Now we're discussing it from within, from a halachic perspective.
Okay.
Now you convey that to the couple.
Okay, so...
Won't just say like, oh, that's just... we don't mess with the
Again, this has to be contextualized.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be contextualized. Okay, I'll say the following. I didn't intend saying any of this, but Marsham, I guess I'll have to wait till tomorrow. But these are important. This is more about Hira and Rabbanus rather than halacha per se. Who are we dealing with? Is this a couple who you already have a relationship with? You've already built up a baseline of trust and of respect? Or is this a congregant who wants their pound of flesh? I have a rabbi, I need to be married. Yeah, again, you always hakol lefi hazman v'hamokim. Who are we dealing with? So there is no standard answer because people do not come in standard shapes and sizes. It all depends on the context and the nature of the relationship. The ideal thing is to nurture and develop a relationship with your parishioners, with your congregants, to the point that when it's like any relationship, it's like a relationship with the Rabbi Shalom. You have to invest in a relationship. So there is emotional capital in the bank account, and then on a rainy day you can make a withdrawal because you've already established trust, love, care, respect. And then you can, and like in any relationship, that's what we do every time we make a bracha, every time we daven. And this is the same with spouses, build up nurture a healthy, strong relationship with all those the key ingredients of a meaningful and healthy relationship. And then you can get to a point and say, look, I feel for you, I get it. I know you'd love to do X. I really do. And let's see what we can make work for you. Let's try. Let's do. But I'm afraid I'm not a free agent, and the Torah is not my plaything just to be, and therefore I'm really sorry. It pains me. And it's got to be real. You know, if you've already built up, but in Ochanam, if you have a big congregation of, 1,000 families, and you hardly know them, and the guy walks in off the street, and they're not religious, and they just want a rabbi to marry them, then you've got a problem on your hands. Maybe pick your congregation first that will suit your temperament, if you have that luxury. But know thyself, you know. So it's not. You with me? And this is a rule, in basically in all relationships. This is emunah. What's emunah? What's bitachon? It's about establishing Shavisi Hashem l'negdi samid, so that through every bracha, through every interaction, so that when you need to, still in chasna mode, yeah. Gewaldig. I think on that note, we will leave the Marasham for another day when you're all slightly less hungover. And see you tomorrow, Rabbi Sai. Shkaya. Thanks.